Alright, hey there, hello everybody, and welcome again to another lecture with Hempology 101. It's always a pleasure to be here teaching people about the various uses of cannabis. And today we're going to have a particular focus on hemp and hemp products, because we would benefit so much as a society, as a peoples around the world, if we used hemp products. And a lot of people don't understand why hemp is so important, both to them, to the agricultural community, and to the greater world at large. But as you'll hear today, hemp can provide for most of our basic needs. Our building materials, our fuels, our food, all sorts of stuff that you would never imagine can be made out of hemp. And so I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes or so showing you products and talking about the potential of other products that we could be making out of hemp in the future. But even currently, right now, it's incredibly exciting to be involved in the cannabis industry, because there's more and more hemp stuff coming out, especially here in Canada, all of the time. And so, I'm going to just talk generally about why hemp is so important for the farmers, and then kind of build in through the products. And so hemp is really good for farmers because they don't need to apply as many pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, or fertilizers to their fields in order to be able to grow very large crops and very good crops of hemp. And it's something that makes a big difference when it comes to the farming community, because they use far more pesticides and such than they should. And I know even from my old family farm, who I'm a 7th-generation farmer from Ontario on both sides, and a few years ago they tested the water to see if there was E. coli or anything else in it, and they found there was near toxic levels in this dairy farm water from the pesticides that were being constantly applied year after year. And hemp doesn't need these extra chemicals for a few reasons. One of them is because it grows so quickly and so prolific that it basically outgrows all the other weeds. So you don't need to kill the other weeds with herbicides, because hemp simply outgrows them and smothers them and kills them, because they just simply don't get the sunlight or the water that they need to live. And if the conditions are right for the hemp plant, it's very hard for other stuff to live in any large quantity. Although if you're growing it organically, obviously other plants can grow through it, but it won't be something that the hemp will compete with these other plants. It's also incredibly fast and efficient at producing biomass. And it can dig into the ground deeper than most other plants. It's got a very deep root system, so it draws nutrients up that other plants like wheat and barley would never be able to gain access to. And as well as drawing the nutrients up, it's very good for breaking up the soil and making it so that for future crops the nutrients are a lot more available to them as well. And so if you replace or take off the leaves, the sort of the top part of the plant, the foliage, and put that back into the ground, that replaces like 70% of the fertilizers that you would need to grow it in the first place. And I understand from farmers in Saskatchewan that if you just plow under a crop of alfalfa the year before, that's all the fertilizer you need to grow a really nice, good crop of hemp. And so for farmers, the non-use of all of these chemicals is very important, because again, we're using far too many chemicals to produce our food and agricultural crops. And so as well though, for production, cannabis hemp is incredibly good or easy to produce into products. I have some hemp paper here. I'm sure most people have seen it before. It's not much different than any other paper you would buy in the market. What is different about hemp paper is that it doesn't actually need to use a bunch of chemicals to bleach it like wood does. Wood, you got to use a lot of chemicals to bleach it to make it white like this. Whereas hemp, you apply hydrogen peroxide, which is fairly environmentally benign. And we could be producing hemp paper using far less chemicals than they use in the wood pulp paper production that we see today. And I understand the fibers, because they're so strong, can be used in recycling for up to 20 times before they've actually like broken down, whereas wood can only be recycled I think 4 or 5 times before the pulp is no longer good. And so I guess I'll start with the uses of hemp products with that. And there's a lot of other products that we are making and have made and continue to make out of hemp that you might not even realize. I got some beautiful rope here. It's not mine, I wish it was, but a friend has loaned it to us for this. And this is hemp rope. And I'm convinced that not only were the first ropes that we ever made produced out of the hemp plant, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago. If we learned how to make fire 1 million years ago, we learned how to make rope several millions of years ago. It would have been really probably one of the first tools that we learned to make out of the natural environment. We simply would have took the stalk from the cannabis plant that we would have found growing naturally and you know, beaten it on the ground a little bit to separate it, and then we would have twisted it up and we could have used it for buildings and you know, tying sticks together so that again we could build various kinds of structures with it, and also unfortunately in some sense it was also used for a lot of war machinery. And so this rope here is sailing rope that's made out of hemp. Most of the good rope that you'll find around the world is made out of hemp because it's very good in the winter. It doesn't crack up like if you're using synthetic sort of ropes like nylon. It won't work very well in the winter. It'll just break up and go brittle. And so hemp lasts very well in the winter. It's very weather resistant, and because it is such a strong fiber, it continues to be the best rope that we could possibly make. But it's not just good for rope, it's also good for canvas. I'm quite certain that the first carpets we ever made were actually like the hemp stalk, just woven together and thrown onto the floor of a cave, and or other structure that we were living in. And it would have been softer on our feet, it would have lasted a long time because the fibers are so strong, and other properties make it insect repellent. Because apparently, while THC doesn't have many qualities apparently for the plant, the only reason we can figure THC is created by the plant is as an insect repellent. And so actually there's even like trichomes that appear on the surface of the plant that are specific to just try to keep bugs away. And so it's possible, it's very possible that the reason that this plant in the first place, millions and millions of years ago, created THC was to keep the bugs away, and we just love that stuff up. And so I'm gonna say we've used it for weaving and for canvas. I have a lot of stuff on my canvas flag here, but the canvas, the root word is cannabis. And so a lot of our ancient clothings were actually woven from hemp. Soon after we stopped using animal furs, we started to produce hemp clothing. The oldest fabric in the world that we know of is made in China, and it's made out of hemp, just like the oldest paper in the world that we know of is made in China, and again it's made out of hemp. In fact, in ancient times, China used to be known as the land of mulberry and hemp. That used to be sort of a phrase that was thrown around to describe China. And so I talked a lot about canvas and rope a few weeks ago in our lecture about the Marijuana Tax Act, because canvas and rope were so critical in the development of the navies of Britain and France and Spain and Portugal and beyond. And really, if it weren't for canvas and rope, we wouldn't have seen the colonialism that we did see in such a rapid rate. But canvas is the strongest fiber that we can produce to use on sailing boats, even to this day. It's very weather resistant and strong, and so that's being used. But now we're getting into a lot of other really neat stuff as well out of the fiber. That's not just canvas anymore. Pretty much all the clothes I'm wearing today are made out of hemp. I have this hemp kind of fur here almost, which is a very soft material. If you guys want to come up and check it out, by all means, yeah. We call it hemp fur. It's the kind of a natural kind of fur, but it's very soft. Yeah, it's much like a towel. We actually use this as a bed sheet. It's probably very absorbent. We've actually, we bought it to make some stuff out of, but now we just use it as a bed sheet. So it doesn't get out much, but it can be used in a lot of different products, that's for sure. We also have this really neat hemp mat here, and this is a roll that, you know, much like a yoga mat, but to sleep on and stuff. And the whole thing's made out of hemp, and there's insulation in here. I'm not going to pull it out and show you, but there's some insulation. This is made in Germany, actually. I wish it was here. But there's really solid, kind of harder insulation. Yeah, I do want to show it, actually. But yeah, it's actually really quite easy to... Okay, there it is. Okay, so you can see a bit. I don't know if you get it on both the cameras well, but I got it's just woven hemp fiber, kind of packed all together into insulation, and that's what fills inside this mat here. And unfortunately, we don't have any products here out of fiber made in Canada yet, but the technology is possible. I have some hemp insulation here from Nepal, actually, of all places. If they can make hemp insulation in Nepal, why the hell aren't we doing it here? But really, that's a whole other story. This is amazing stuff. I don't know all of the R ratings on it and stuff like that. It hasn't been tested. They don't actually sell it out of Nepal because they use it in Nepal. They don't make the kind of insulation we do, but they make this and use it in Nepal. And I can tell just by hugging it as much as I do that it would be very excellent insulation in buildings. And we could be making a lot of our building materials out of hemp, actually. I brought my Canacrete. Actually, I'm not going to pick it up and move it around, but I have a couple of bricks here that I've actually made out of cannabis stock from some of our growers. I sell cannabis, or I guess I did till Monday, to sick people, and we got a bunch of growers that donated stock. And and apparently in ancient times, using the cannabis stock to make building materials was very common. There's old bridges in France and other places around the world where they're discovering now that there is hemp mixed up into it. And so this one here is the simplest formula. This brick here is actually just lime and water and hemp. Again, I took the stock, I put it through a wood chipper, and that broke it up, and we tried to separate it and take out as much of the fiber as we could. Because there's two parts of the hemp stalk. There's the fiber on the outside and the cork in the middle. I should have explained this. For most of these products that I've shown you so far, they're all made out of the fiber. And until last century, the cork in the middle wasn't good for very much at all. But the cork, actually, when you mix it with lime and water, it calcifies and turns into basically stone in about a year's time. It actually becomes solid like stone. And it's really amazing stuff. This here that's just got the lime and the water is still quite light, though. It'd be really great for insulation, but it's not load bearing. So it wouldn't be good for walls or benches or anything like that. But it would be really great for filling in walls. So a lot of times they've got space between walls that they fill in with insulation or don't fill in at all. But normally you'd put insulation in there. Well, you'd be able to pack it in with this hempcrete, and it would work as excellent insulation. This second brick beside it here has actually got sand in it as well. So it's cannabis stock, sand, water, and lime, and that's it. There's no concrete mix or anything, and it's quite solid. We've got a patio up island that we've made on the ground, and it's amazing how within just a year it's pretty much solid rock. And so this would have been what they would have been making building materials out of in the years gone by. I think we've been making lime for about 10,000 years. And so in the last 10,000 years, we've really developed a lot of natural building materials, and hemp was certainly one of the first that we used. I'm quite convinced of that. And with some concrete mix, it would even be harder. But as it is, we believe that the sand, lime, water, and cannabis stock would be enough to make, again, benches and walls and all sorts of other stuff. So I've only experimented a little bit with the hempcrete. I'm really looking forward to doing more in the future with that. But it's kind of been put on the back burner. So there's a lot of other products that we could be making out of fiber as well, or that we are. I guess the other one is the hemp fiber can be mixed and into plastics and also used as fiberglass. I don't have one yet, but there's a car made in Alberta, an electric car that has a hemp fiber body. In fact, there's a lot of cars now that have got bodies that are made out of hemp fiber and interior made out of hemp as well. And that's...
Hold it still.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
And that's because the fiber is very strong, and it's very excellent to, or very good to use in the body parts of a vehicle, because it'll actually bend back to its normal shape if it's been dented. And so a lot of car manufacturers are switching over to hemp fiberglass as opposed to the fiberglass they're using now, because it's easier to repair and it's lighter, so the cars are more fuel efficient as well. And so we're seeing a lot more hemp fiber being used in fiberglass, and also being mixed in. This is a plastic with the hemp fiber mixed into it as well. But again, the fiber is only really one part of the plant here. There's a lot of this plant to use, and I showed you some paper there a minute ago. I'm not sure if that paper is actually made out of the hemp fiber or the hemp herds. It's possibly and probably made out of the herds, which again is the cork in the middle of the cannabis stalk. And this piece of hemp wood is certainly made out of the herds, or again the cork in the cannabis plant. And so what you see here is some hemp press board. Basically, it's from China. We don't make this here in Canada. We don't have the industry yet to do that, but one day we will. But yeah, it's basically like glued to, and pressed together and made into plywood, very much like the plywood that we sell here, except it's not as environmentally harmful to use, for sure. And I don't know which is stronger or not. I did some testing with my hemp board a couple years ago, and it seems to be very strong. Because they can't grow hemp in the United States, but they're really itching for it down there, so they're buying like the raw material up and processing it in the US. But it is something here, though. A lot of entrepreneurs in Canada have set up small businesses and are producing their own hemp food products and dealing directly with the markets themselves. And it's something that hasn't spilled over to the hemp fiber industry. It's been a really problematic history here in Canada. Hemp became legal to grow here in 1998, and 2 years after that, I wish I would have brought the stats here, but 2 years after that, we saw an explosion in hemp growth here in Canada. But it failed bitterly because there was nowhere to sell the fiber to. And a bunch of farmers, I come from a dairy farm community in Ontario, and the story there is all too common, where a farmer was all keen on growing hemp. He basically like grew this entire farm with hemp, emptied out his barn, figured he was going to be a hemp farmer, and there was nowhere to sell it. There's nobody actually producing anything with the fiber, because to make a factory that's going to produce hemp products with the fiber isn't so cheap. A paper factory would cost about $250 million to make a really good, skookum little hemp paper factory. Well, that's not small change. Even converting an existing mill over to hemp would cost about $50 million. And so, yep.
Is that any more or less than it would cost to build a conventional paper factory?
I don't know if it's more or less than it would cost to build a conventional factory. I would assume it would be a little bit less, because you'd need less chemicals. Pulp paper uses a lot of chemicals to bleach it, whereas we would just use hydrogen peroxide for hemp paper. And so it would probably be a little less expensive, but probably not much. So yeah, that's in range with the pulp paper mill. But it's still a lot of money, and the farmers that have gotten into this haven't had money to even get a hemp rope factory going. So all the hemp string. Do we even have hemp string here?
Yep, right up front.
There's too much here.
This is one right there.
There it is. Yeah. So like this string here that's being sold in Canada, this is actually from Serbia. when we were in Edmonton, we actually met the guy who sells this here. He's a representative from the Serbia government. His family grows this and sells this here in Canada. But we don't even make our own string or rope or anything like that here in Canada out of the fiber. It's really sad. Although there is some movement towards doing it. 100 Mile House is the country's leaders in construction material. So actually in 100 Mile House, they've been growing hemp and building hemp houses for a couple years now, and are really pushing it at that end. I understand in Manitoba this year they finally got some money to make a hemp insulation factory. So we're really looking forward to that, because right now the hemp farmers have nowhere to sell their fiber to. Again, we went to a hemp farm this summer, and right now he literally burns his hemp stock that could be making, again, rope, clothing, any number of materials. But right now there's just nowhere for him to sell it. There's even nowhere for him to process it. As I mentioned, the hemp fiber is attached to kind of a cork in the stalk, right? It's not just fiber. And the two have to be separated. And what we need here in Canada is a decorticator. I don't think there's a single decorticator in this country. But what that is it's a machine that will separate the two, basically like pounding them and grinding them up. So on one hand, you'll have this beautiful fiber that can be strung or made into string very easily. And then on the other hand, you would have the hurd or this cork that again you can make into paper or building materials or other products like that. We don't have, to my knowledge, anywhere in Canada a single decorticator. And that's the real ticket here. They have them in China and many other places around the world. But I understand the ones in China, for the most part, are really, really old and fall apart, and they don't have, like, very many, new machinery. And so we're really hoping in the next couple of years that some way of decorticating the stock becomes available here in Canada, because it would mean a lot to the people growing hemp already. As I said, this hemp farm we were at, just growing it for seed, burning the stalk, not doing anything with the stalk or the leaf, but just growing it for the seed, hemp is 3 to 4 times more profitable than growing any other crop. If they could sell the fiber, well, they'd be making more money. They'd be able to drop the price of the seed a little bit and maybe even invest in more infrastructure. But again, there's nowhere to sell the fiber to right now, so the farmers don't have that market that they should, which again would make it even more profitable for them, and more farmers would be getting into hemp. So as soon as we have a place here in Canada that's processing hemp in any way, it's really going to change the industry much for the better. And I have one final topic to talk about, which is really new. A lot of the products I talked about, paper is thousands of years old. We've been making hemp paper and clothing and rope and eating it for seed, long before written history. But there's something sort of new but old that we're getting into, which is called, as juicing. Now, just in the last year, juicing cannabis plants for medicine has become sort of the new thing. For various reasons. People don't want to become intoxicated often if they're dealing with the medical problem, right? There's lots of people that don't smoke cannabis that get sick and learn that this plant can help them, but they don't want to get high. So they've thought about juicing it. And juicing does apparently have a lot of great medicinal benefits. And in fact, when we were at the hemp farm this summer in Saskatchewan, we juiced about 50 or 60 plants. They were somewhat immature. They were about 3 weeks short of the harvest, so the seeds weren't fully mature, but they were plants grown for seed, and we basically cut out as much of the stalk as we could, and then we juiced the plants. And we tried it, a bunch of us at work. It was incredibly strong tasting. It was sort of like if you take the stalk when you're smoking your pot, you could take a little stalk and chew on it. That's what the taste was, but like times 100. You kind of had to have a chaser with it, because even water wasn't really a good chaser, honestly, to get the taste down. Some people don't mind chlorophyll, but it was just a really powerful taste. But yeah.
And this is the same kind of juicer that you get, like.
It was a wheatgrass juicer.
Yeah, like from,
yeah.
like 1 a.m.
Yeah. So it was incredible how little juice we got for the amount of plants we put in, right? It was just dripping out as I'm like chucking these hemp plants into the juicer. But Yeah, a whole bunch of us did get to try it. And more importantly, we actually got Dr. Hornby to do a test for cannabinoids in the oil. And Dr. Hornby is going to be here in a couple weeks, and I really want to talk to him a lot about the test and what he thinks it means. But we did this test, and granted, the seeds or the hemp plants that are being grown here in Canada are very controlled. It's actually ironic. Hemp seeds are more controlled than cannabis seeds used for marijuana. The farmers can't produce their own seeds. They have to buy the seeds every year from the government. The government actually comes and tests them right towards the end of the harvest. If it's got more than 0.5% THC, they have to cut the whole field down. And no compensation at all. Apparently the seed companies might kick in some seeds for next year's crop, but the government doesn't compensate. You're like, too much THC, cut her down. And so the test that we got, damn it, I should have brought it today, but the test showed that there's about 0.6% THC in these hemp plants, or the juice anyway. And THC, if you don't know, is the most active compound in the cannabis plant. It's basically what gives us the high and has a lot of other medical benefits. And there's been a certain amount of concentration on higher THC content in the cannabis plants. But it's not the only important one. We've learned a lot about another cannabinoid called CBD for short. And CBD has a lot of medical benefits that we're just beginning to appreciate now. And the test that we did showed that there was about 5% CBD in the hemp juice, or about 10 times more than the amount of THC. Now again, the THC has been kind of bred out of these plants, so naturally hemp, I believe, produces closer to 3% THC if it's allowed to sort of like grow on its own and just more natural. But still, 5% CBD is still even higher than that. And we're quite convinced, not only at our club, but other people in the movement, that CBD is actually a greater chemical treasure, you could say, than the cannabis plant. Than the THC that we've all known for so long. Whether that's true or not, we'll learn over time. I'm quite certain that the two chemicals in combination with each other and the other chemicals that appear in the plant are the best value. But there's a lot of drug companies out there eyeing up CBD and obviously THC and all the other chemicals in the plant because it has so many great potential uses. But the hemp plant, again, because it is legally grown here in Canada now, has got such a huge potential for providing this juice that is totally legal, unlike the cannabis plant. And we're really hoping that within the next year or two, our friends or others get into the industry of starting to make medicine out of the leaf, because again, I'm certain that there's a lot of very good medicinal qualities that could come from the hemp leaf. But it's not been used. We probably haven't really used it a lot for thousands of years. Really, we've concentrated on the hash and the bud more of late. But yeah, so like I've been saying, the cannabis plant is really this treasure trove of products that we could be making that would be healthier for us, because we'd be using less of the chemicals that we use in sort of the products, the plastics, the paints, and building materials. Like, there's a lot of nasty chemicals that are used to produce the everyday products that we're using. But we could stop doing that. We could use environmentally friendly products that are good for us, that are good for the farmers, that are good for the planet. And hemp, I'm confident, is the plant that can help turn our economy around, help turn our planet around, and really help turn our society around and make it a friendlier and healthier place for everybody. So thanks everyone for putting up with me as I've gone through all these different products and my hopes and stuff. And next week's lecture is going to be the first one this semester, actually in Cinecenta. And I'm kind of excited because next week's lecture is on cannabis research. And so I'm going to put some videos up and some other images. And I'm actually kind of using it to prepare for a really big talk I have. Actually, it's 1 month today, November 3rd. I'm in Vancouver. My friend Chris Bennett, who's written a couple books on the history of cannabis, is doing a convention on the history of marijuana in Vancouver at the Vapor Lounge. He's got some of the top historians on the use of cannabis and other hallucinogenic drugs in history coming. Professor Carl Ruck, Michael Ulrich, who's known as Dr. Dope. He's the first PhD in cannabis in North America. There's just a wonderful list of speakers. And so I'm speaking at this, and I'm going to tie in the knowledge we have in research and medicine now to how we used it in ancient times, and why essentially we've evolved with cannabis and have this somewhat symbiotic relationship with it. And so I'm going to get right into the chemistry of that. So so next week's lecture will be kind of a precursor to that talk in Vancouver. But and then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have Dr. Paul Hornby here. And he does his chemistry lesson every year talking about research and stuff. So we're really excited to have him here as well. And we'll continue the rest of the year in the movie theater there in Cinecenta. But other than that, I'm going to just wrap it up here by thanking everybody for coming out. Thanks, Dan, for bringing that awesome rope to show everybody. And we'll see you all here at 420. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Have a great day and smoke with God.